you just get behind an ox for 10 hours a day. That'll cure your depression. And I was like, man, I feel sorry for all the kids who came to see you, Dad, because depression is real. And you even look at things like autism. Autism is being so much more diagnosed and talked about. Mental illnesses, too. I think there is that much more prevalence of it these days. But I think, too, people are just being able to talk about it, especially the young folks. They want to be able to talk about that. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. Well, that's very insightful. When somebody dies from suicide, the first thing that we hear is, where's the bully? There must be a bully. Well, I can tell you in my experience, anyone that we've ever gone to do a postvention, like after a suicide, there's never been just a bully. There may have been, but the person who died by suicide is bullying just as much as they were being bullied. And there's alcohol or drugs or a broken home or some difficult family dynamic. I mean, there's a lot of things like you're talking about, the drama and the trauma. So. And that's what we did when I met those schools, because of the family dynamics, the poverty, and children having children. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You just name it. Yeah. You pile it on. Well, the thing that I've learned is that we're not immune from this either. We also, have difficulties in our profession, whether you're a nurse or a doctor or a chaplain or a minister. Even when I was a chaplain in a children's hospital, if somebody survived something difficult, or even if they died, they would at least be saying, well, I've lived a good life. But then when it's a 1-year-old, the pain. And I began to notice how I was exhibiting some isolation, some depression, even my minor illnesses. Even my body was screaming to me, Tom, you need to rest. Tom, you need to find a way to debrief about some of these things that you're going through. I began to have some apathy, be a little desensitized to some of the things that people were telling me. Others have told me that they have an escape. That might be pornography, alcohol, shopping. That maybe they're sleeping too much, sleeping too little. Their appetite is bad. Whoops. And of course, if you're to the degree of having flashbacks and nightmares, I would really recommend some professional counseling. Everybody needs somebody to talk to, So, yes. So what is compassion fatigue? It's pretty much, people have asked me, they're like, isn't it the same as burnout? And I can't discern. In fact, even before talking today, I tried this week to call the guy in Louisiana, he lives in New Orleans now, that coined the term compassion fatigue. I guess that's how lazy I am. I'm not going to go to a library and look it up. I'll just find this guy. Yeah, I'll just Google him. But I couldn't get hold of him. But it was funny when I started having a little compassion fatigue. I still loved my job, loved my coworkers. I even enjoyed the commute. There was a lot I loved. I just noticed that when it came to the patients or the clients, I would remove myself, do more administrative work, close my door, not be as open to the ministry that I had in front of me. And so I noticed that I just wasn't feeling anything. I was disengaged. I was doing work. Yes?
Burnout's just a little further along in the process.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compassion fatigues first and then burnout.
Yep. So I think you're exactly right. So, what is it? It's, it's just your sensitivity is just replaced by nothing. And then you're right. Once it becomes... That's right. That's right.
My dissertation was on that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. So, and this is what I tell people: life's not just about living; it's just about being well and living life to the fullest. So, what is compassion fatigue? Maybe we feel like, well, I'm a minister, I'm a man of God or a woman of God, and I have to sacrifice my family and sacrifice myself, and you think you're being selfish, taking care of yourself. But clearly, the Bible even says, love your neighbor as yourself. You're not loving your neighbor well if you're not taking good care of yourself. For me, I had zero boundaries. While going through grad school, I was able to afford it by working and living at universities. I was a director of housing, so I had to be there on campus. So, if the fire alarms went off, if some students needed to complain, I couldn't just take a sick day. I was right there. My personal and professional life were so meshed. I just didn't have any boundaries. Maybe you're overstepping some of overdeveloped sense of responsibility. Maybe people grew up even saying, well, I'm the good girl or the good boy, and I've got to fix this. I have to be the fixer, and they take on too much, kind of a save the world mentality. Medicine is no stranger to compassion fatigue. Ministers are no stranger to compassion fatigue. I mean, you're trying to preach the word, people are snoozing. You have to deal with 20, 30 traumas a day, hearing phone calls and hospital visitations. I mean, there's a lot of secondary trauma, a lot of burnout, a lot of desensitization, and that's hard. Ministers have it really hard, and that self-care is so important. I like this. This business was like, well, we struggled with burnout, so we just changed our mission statement. It's just chill, So, so some things you can do to address compassion fatigue. Number one, get educated. Know what it is. Sometimes when you're able to label something and know about what it is, you can fight it a little bit more. You can prevent it a little bit more. I love prevention. Again, before stage 4. Don't wait to compassion fatigue. Don't wait for burnout. Go ahead and start addressing it now. Purposefully develop a hobby. There's this one group of bankers I love. They're doing the same Bible study that I've been in for 4 years. They've been doing it for 13 years. And these bankers, they finally even labeled their group. They call themselves the frauds. They have such... we call it imposter syndrome. I'm the president of the bank, and people are going to find out I can hardly add. I don't belong in this position. I'm going to be found out any day. I'm weak, incompetent, but they do. But they're able to come together and share their weaknesses and their strengths and to pray for one another. And that type of thing is so helpful when it comes to not burning out. You have to recharge your batteries as well. Set emotional boundaries. Engage in outside hobbies. Create healthy relationships outside of work. Let's see. So I'll be talking a little bit more, time permitting, on resiliency and mental fortitude. And I'm going to let you tell me if you see Monty Burks come in or somebody from his office, okay? So otherwise, I'll just take a little bit of his time. All right. So I'll talk a little bit more about boosting your resiliency and mental fortitude. Develop coping strategies. Implement some things at work. The one thing I love is an employment assistance program because, or EAP. A lot of businesses have this, and it's maybe you get 10 free counseling sessions, and they even can help you look up things like connect you to an attorney or find a scholarship to college for your child. EAPs offer a cafeteria style, different menus for each company, but only 1.5% to 2% of employees actually use their EAP. So if a company has that, it's a great thing. do a support group. We actually have a lot of Alzheimer's support groups at businesses. They meet once a month for lunch, and they kind of just talk about, again, your doctors, your medicines, what's working for you, what about taking care of yourself as a caregiver. There's some accountability there, but we love establishing, and we'll give support groups all the information they need about, again, mental health, aging, grandparents raising grandchildren. I mean, there's a lot. Ask for help, or again, even seek professional therapy. So again, being a man of faith and a Christian, formerly a full-time minister, I usually look to Christ for my example. And this was something that I came across not too long ago. It says, that evening after sunset, the people brought Jesus all the sick. Brought him all the sick and demon-possessed. And the whole town gathered at the door. And Jesus, he healed many and who had various diseases. And he also drove out many demons. But he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. I always thought it was odd. Why didn't he heal 100%? Why did it say all? It said many. And then very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. I love that. He understood about finding a solitary place, recharging, praying. It wasn't just go, 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 go. We pride ourselves on... I just wish I had an award to give for the busiest person. Well, I had to get up early. And well, you did. Well, I had to start even earlier than that. And my back was killing me. And it's just, you're so busy. Well, I just want to give people an award. But to take time out and to say, I'm going to go and pray and recharge. And look what happened after that. Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, Everyone is looking for you. And Jesus replied, well, quick, let's go somewhere else. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? Let's go to nearby villages so I can preach there also. That's why I've come. So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. When people come to me and say, everyone's looking for you, I'm like, oh, I'm late. Let me speed. Let me endure this commute and traffic. Let me get there in a hurry. Let me disregard my family and my self-care. Let me not have any boundaries whatsoever. But look, Jesus is like, I think we might need a day trip, and I think we might need a break. And I think that we need to put this in good hands of people to assist me. I need to learn to delegate, and I can go over here to another area. So I really think when it comes to compassion fatigue and self-care, I think we can look here and find some answers that it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to not do it all. And, I think that a person with some mental fortitude can realize they can't please all the people all the time. And they're okay with some people being upset about that sometimes. So... I don't know if I can say it again. I don't know what I said. All right. So kind of switching gears to some things to help us just with our mental fortitude. Some of it starts with self-esteem. And self-esteem is not just what you think of yourself, but it's also what others think of you. Don't laugh too hard. I think the last time I just fell on the ground, I was a little kid, and I remember people at school laughing at me when I, slipped and fell on my butt. My feet went up. Well, it's been raining a lot lately, and last week I slipped and fell, and do you know, this time people ran to me, "Sir, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I thought, when I was young, when people thought I was young, they laughed, but when they think you're old, "Sir, are you okay?" During Christmas, I went to CVS to buy some gift cards, and they looked at me and they said, "Sir, is anyone forcing you to purchase these gift cards?" And I was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." And they said, "Well, if somebody's son steals your Social Security, that's a felony. But if they just force you to buy gift cards, that's a misdemeanor." And I thought, he thinks I'm elder abuse here. He thinks I'm a victim of elder abuse or something. And, just one more of this. I I used to live in Texas, and we'd go down to Mexico quite a bit. And, I remember sometimes I'd cross over that border and they'd say, "Hey, mister, you need women? You need ladies?" And I thought, oh, my gosh. Well, then at one point in my life, I started crossing over and they said, "Hey, mister, do you need pharmacy? Do you need a doctor?" And I was like, "Hey, I still got it. You know what? I mean, not that but how did things change? And all of this really impacts your self-esteem, and how you view yourself and how others view you. And we've talked a lot about how, again, everybody has something going on, and the stigma that's associated with that. And people, what they really prefer is a world of superheroes where you can take your cape and block everything and be strong. But I'm telling you, what the world needs are people who are vulnerable and people who are real and people who say 1 in 5 annually have a diagnosable mental illness. Let me tell you what happened when my wife left me. Let me tell you what happened when I lost that job. Let me tell you the bad thoughts that I've had in my head. And people start saying, I'm the same way. I am the same. We've all been there. But greatness should be defined by being you and loving others and making disciples. How many of y'all actually have a Facebook friend? That they're always going on vacation. They're always dressing nice. I think every time they go out, they must carry a professional photographer, with them. And, I have a friend like that, and every time she's like thankful for the life she's been given, she feels blessed. And I don't think she's just saying this because of Facebook. I think she really believes it. But secretly, I sometimes really hate my friend on Facebook, and I don't know, maybe, yeah, and I don't know how many of you can kind of relate to that, but researchers have said that kind of attitude, looking at your Facebook and envying friends, research shows it leads to depression. And I'm like, it's 5 seconds out of my day, but regardless, that steals a little energy from you. It steals a little power from you when you're envying others and what they have. And a new antidepressant. Instead of swallowing it, you throw it at somebody who appears to be having a good time. It's like, I kind of get that, but it's just so difficult sometimes, to enjoy others' success. And I noticed early on, if you want a strong body, I actually took some extended time off last spring. And what I learned is that if you really want to become strong and lose weight, it's not just that you have to go to the gym, but you also have to stop doing some of the bad habits as well, like eating poorly or, cheating a little bit. So you don't just have to go to the gym, but you also have to stop, doing some other things. Similarly, if you want to become mentally resilient and mentally strong, it's not just that you have to continue practicing things like honesty and gratitude in your life, but you also have to stop doing some of the bad things like envying some of your friends' success. And that's really important. And so I was able to look at a list of 3 things that really take away some of that power, 3 unhealthy habits or thoughts that really make a tremendous impact on us in a negative way. And if we could stop doing some of these things, how much healthier we would be, our resilience, our fortitude. So number 1 is just, sometimes we have an unhealthy belief about ourselves. I see a lot of people having pity parties. They're wallowing in maybe what could have been. Maybe they're living in the glory days, or maybe they're just caught in some terrible regret that they had, that they just can't get out of. And so we have unhealthy beliefs about ourselves. The next is just unhealthy beliefs about others. Sometimes I'll tell my wife, well, I have to work late. And I hang up, I'm like, who's telling me I have to work late? Obviously there might be some consequences, but it's my choosing. My talking bad about my boss, my maybe not thinking the best thoughts about my mother-in-law or talking about that. I mean, she's not the nicest person in the world, but I could have a lot worse. But those types of unhealthy beliefs about others, that injures me ultimately, you know? And then unhealthy beliefs about the world. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was just growing up in a stricter Christian church. I mean, I'm talking like legalism here. But you think that if you do certain good things and you follow the right way, that this cosmic goodness is going to fall on you. And how disappointed are we when we find out that the people who cut corners and cheat sometimes get ahead and we don't? Not yet. I mean, maybe, someday I think that'll all pay off. But we really have unhealthy beliefs about the world that we're entitled or owed something. And so, again, just I think countering some of these unhealthy habits is a way to really start being more healthy and to increase our fortitude. And I could go into these, even Helen Keller, I mean, to be in her situation and to say, we all need to be sad. We all need to experience emotion, but we can't get stuck in that type of self-pity. Unhealthy beliefs about others in how we respond to them. So this was just, I think, repeating that. But ultimately, the only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday, And, but yet we're so stuck on Facebook and keeping up with the Joneses and things like that. So I would just really encourage you to focus on, how do you respond to others? And then again, how you respond to the world, that there's not this cosmic goodness that's going to just, that you're owed something. Well, I feel like that if I start at the next part, we might go over a little bit. But I just want to encourage you, think about, what are your thoughts about yourself, your others, the world. I will share with all of my counseling friends and therapy friends, on the very first session, they tell people, you need to unplug from Facebook. You need to do a fast on social media. That's the number one thing. When it comes to anxiety, depression, and you're working through your cognitive mind and doing a hard reset there, it's to turn that off. So, we all need to be comfortable in our own skins. But I think the way to start doing that is to really, number one, I would say look at what Christ and his model that he set for us. Be able to find somebody to talk to or talk with. And thirdly, to see if there's some outside type of support, whether it's a support group, other pastors and ministers, other professionals getting together just to debrief and talk. You too could have your group called, the frauds or whatever. But ultimately, you become a better person when you can have those outlets, and it's so preventative, and it helps to treat compassion fatigue and burnout. But yes?
I want you to continue, and I think this piece is key. And review the slides.
I will. I'll go through this.
I want you to do that, and I want really this to turn into more of a dialogue in just a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll have the other presentations.
Okay.
But I'd like for Dr. Webb, he's running to another meeting.
Oh, yeah.
He always makes me want to see who you are, so that see the speaker is just a moment.
Sure.
And we'll pick right back up and keep it going through 13 days.
That sounds good. Yes, sir. That's probably because I'm just as good at sinning as I am. Thank you.
I just wanted to emphasize on your involvement with CHEN.
You too, Dr. Webb. All right. Well, I will work on going through this rather quickly. And again, it's funny how to me mental health has become my ministry. I really feel like in the nonprofit world, you can find ways to feed the hungry, serve the poor, clothe the naked. And, Luke 2:52 talks about how Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So you had the mental and the physical, and then the spiritual and the social. So, to be that holistic is one thing I really like. So my ministry these days is the mental. So 13 things that mentally people do or even don't do. And again, this list actually comes from a writer named Amy Morin, Morin. But she says they don't waste time feeling sorry for themselves. If something happens, you feel sad, you grieve, you go through the grieving process, you don't pretend otherwise, but you don't just stay stuck there in regret. You start living life again. They don't, give away their power. I mean, they have boundaries. They don't just succumb to every whim. They know when to say no. They have strong boundaries and how important that is. They don't shy away from change. Nobody really likes change, but mentally strong people, they tend to embrace it a little quicker and a little better. My dad always told me change is inevitable except for this one Coke machine that never gave him any change back. It was just, change is just part of life. And so they embrace change and they realize it's going to happen, and they can flow with that pretty well. They don't waste energy on things they can't control. I don't see mentally strong people mad that the luggage hasn't come or that it's been lost or traffic. They really only focus on what they can control, and sometimes that's nothing more than their attitude. Is all you can control. They don't worry about pleasing everyone. Again, they're very fair people. They try to please people, but they also realize that you can't please everybody all the time, and they're okay with others being upset because of the boundaries that they themselves have had to establish in trying to please people, but not being able to please everyone all the time. They don't fear taking a calculated risk. Again, they're not going to throw caution to the wind. But they don't mind taking a bit of a risk if it's fair. They don't just stay in a safe zone. I'm trying to think if it was Elijah. I was always impressed because God said, well, go down to this river, and I'm going to have the ravens come and feed you. And then later on, God said, well, now go to this village, and I'm going to have this woman take care of you. Well, sometimes I can't discern God's calling in my life. I might know for sure that he's putting me by this river and ravens are feeding me. But, when it's all dried up, I just stick there and stay there for a long time. And I'm wondering what's going on. I want to be in God's will. And I want to stay where it's safe. And what's happened to this river? What's happened to these ravens? And I'll sit there and starve. But you've got to take calculated risks and say, I really feel like God's calling me, over here. They don't dwell in the past. Again, whether it's the glory days or something in their life that's been tragic, a death of a sibling or a loved one or a spouse. But they grieve, they deal with their emotions, they take it for what, they don't pretend otherwise, and they're able to move on. They don't make the same mistakes over and over. So in my world, we don't use the word crazy or insane too whimsically. We don't, I don't sit there at work and say, man, I just want to kill myself, because I'll have 8 people come and say, are you okay? Are you thinking about suicide? But, they say that doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, definition of insanity. That's right. So you try not to make the same mistakes over and over. You try to improve yourself. They don't resent other people's success. Kind of like my friend on Facebook. I should be able to congratulate her. She's worked hard. She married well. She has a beautiful family, and she's so thankful. And I shouldn't be envious or covet that or think, man, she has all the luck. I should celebrate, with her and not think negatively of myself for where I am. They don't give up after the first failure. Boy, that's so easy. The older we get, we don't have to expect failure over and over before we learn our lesson. You fail once and you're like, well, I'm not going back to that church or to this senior center or to this thing. I know what that's about. But they don't give up after the first failure. They don't fear alone time. I'm not the most comfortable person in my own skin. I'll just tell you, my wife's like, I've never heard people talk to themselves as much as you do. And you're, just talking and yapping. And I'm like, if I went to a pie shop the other day to try to do some strategic planning. And I was all alone, and all I did was just eat pie. I didn't even do any strategic planning. I thought, I just can't do this alone thing. But I've noticed that more people with strong mental fortitude, they're very comfortable in their skin. I'm not saying they deal with loneliness well. Nobody deals with loneliness, but they can self-isolate and find some solitude and deal with that. They don't feel the world owes them anything. They don't feel entitled to anything. They don't feel like I did all this right and nothing works out well for me. They understand that, life sooner or later it's almost the law of averages. At some point things are going to be pretty good for me. But they don't feel like the world just, owes them. And they don't expect immediate results. They realize that sometimes you have to earn something and work hard at something, and how difficult that can be. I was thinking there's one guy, he was a diabetic, and he went to a therapist because he was just having some, his mom died from bad diabetes. He had bad diabetes. He just figured he was stuck there. And finally, meeting with the therapist, he said, well, I'll make one change. And this was after weeks of him not doing anything. He said, I'll change my habit of two 2 liters of Pepsi for Diet Pepsi. And he would come in still week after week complaining about how much he hates Diet Pepsi. But he would show up, and he was shocked at how dramatically his numbers corrected themselves. And so much so that he said, well, I'll try to do one more thing. I will trade my nightly bowl of ice cream for something with less sugar in it. And his numbers continued to improve. His diabetes had gotten so bad that he actually was having trouble seeing, and then he lost his driver's license. But at this point, he was at a thrift store with his friends, and for just a few bucks, he bought an exercise bike, and he put it in front of his TV. And after a couple of weeks, he noticed that he could actually see the TV much better. And so he made the goal to get his driver's license back. And slowly, he started, coming in and saying, all right, what are we going to do today? What's the challenge? Before you really can improve your world, you really have to believe that you can. And this guy came in as a non-believer. He wasn't going to change. It was just his destiny to die of diabetes. His mom died of diabetes. He can't change anything. But once he started believing he could, he did. So, be kind to your mental health, be kind to yourself, and respect your own boundaries that you have. And again, I think I probably relied more on Amy Morin down here at the bottom, the 13 things mentally people don't do. Oh, I thought that's what they did. So anyway, she's a therapist and does a really great job, and she's become a prolific writer and speaker. It would be really good. And again, if you need resources or a portal to more resources or support groups or materials for your church, we would love to replenish anything that you have or need. That's one of the things that we're there for. And we're a proud partner of CHEN. And so Mental Health America stands with CHEN and, again, just hopes that you'll take steps to improve yourself, especially if you're on the verge of some compassion fatigue. So thank you very much. Thank you. And I didn't even ask if there was any questions. Yeah. Any?
Well, I just sent you
Anything?
an email.
Oh, good.
This is going to turn into a question.
Yeah.
About us, if you're requesting, if you do it, a copy of the presentation, 10,000 on it, would you mind would you give the pieces of it?
Sure.
Do that?
Yeah, I'll send this to you, and you can improve it, and yeah, take it on. So.
Well, we'll mention your name in
No. I don't know. Especially if they don't. Yeah, if they don't like it, you can say my name even louder. So yeah. Anything else?
I think
Super.
you were talking about getting off of Facebook and stuff like that. So I got off of like social media briefly, and so what I realized after like fasting from it is that I was just taking, like I wasn't living in the moment. So like I had to take a picture of my food, and I had to do this and make a nice little caption and do this. And so like I was never living in the moment because everything was about posting it, not necessarily for other people to see, but maybe for other people to see. And so like it was no longer about me actually enjoying being where I was, but more so just to like say I was there and I posted it or whatever. Also what I realized is that when I'm feeling ungrateful about something, immediately I'm like, well, you're feeling ungrateful, you have to do something for somebody else. The things that you currently have right now, you once prayed for. So like when I start feeling like, oh, whoa, it's me, oh, I don't, this, I was like, well, I have to do something immediately for somebody else, and somebody else that's less fortunate. So a quick story, I always go to the farmer's market weekly. There's this homeless lady in there, and she has a verified PhD in like physics or something, very brilliant lady. Doesn't bother anybody, doesn't ask anything. She
Yeah.
doesn't like ask for food, money, nothing. She just sits there and she reads. And so everybody at the farmer's market, all the regulars is what we call it, kind of took to her. So like, she likes to do yoga. She was doing yoga on a plastic bag out by the farmer's market. So when somebody bought her a yoga mat. And then, so like we take care, the regulars take care of her. And so, she's hungry. She doesn't approach anybody, so we'll have to ask, okay, are you hungry today? She's like, well, I've already eaten today and I can't take anything back to the mission. So could you prepay for a meal for tomorrow? And so we'll go to the vendors, and all the vendors know her, and so like we'll prepay for a meal so she can get it tomorrow. So last Friday, I don't want to hear it, but last Friday, she must have went to the library sometime last week. So when I came in last Friday, she gave me a thank you note that she went to the library to print. She said, it said Happy Valentine's Day. She said, hey Shanteria, Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you, your sister in Christ. And just something simple like an $8 meal can like literally put life into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Complaining about stuff that doesn't even mean anything in the grand scheme of things. And she's grateful for an $8 meal.
Isn't that great? Yeah, people in the hospital, they don't know that people in a nursing home would change places with them in a heartbeat, And it is. To be able to get your eyes off of yourself and to serve others, yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, it just puts things into perspective. And like, again, I'm here by myself, and I have to thank my whole family is in Baltimore. So like when it's time to like, man, I wish I could be home or be with my family.
Yeah.
And then I feel like, oh, I'm so lonely. But then it's like, well, also you're employed, and also you have a home. Some people would like to be alone
Yeah.
in their home. Like people. So like the things that you're complaining about are the things that people would love to have.
That's great perspective. And thank you too with the social media. You're exactly right. Both of those.
I think unconsciously compare yourself to others.
Mm-hmm.
Others not like, but like you've already fed your spirit like, oh, they're always like shopping. It's like, well, what did I do wrong? Or they're always on a trip. And it's like, well, I have one more degree than her. Like, why am I not like balling out of control? Like, so like,
Yeah.
you just unconsciously compare yourself.
think you're right.
You can curate your feed, so you can take people out of your feed. And so, sometimes you can get the people who are feeding more positivity into your feed.
Always
People
pop
that
up.
are always doing the verses and the positive thoughts, and you can curate your feed to feed you.
To feed you.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, yes.
It may not necessarily be for you, but how do you encourage more males to seek mental health counseling or assistance? I mean, not that they have
Yeah.
illness, but just,
You know, it's funny. So down at Bridgestone, I came in, I was going to talk about men in depression, and nobody from the union showed up. 0 people showed. So the next month, we said it was how men can sleep better and be more productive. And everybody, and I did the same speech I was going to do on depression. And it's really in how you couch, some terms, because men aren't really good about connecting with other men, connecting with friends, sharing problems. They got to be strong and not cry. So I think a lot of it is just trying to create, different opportunities that they might try once and like it. So it's difficult though. So, hey, thank you guys again very much for sharing part of your day with me. So, appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
So we'll email the presentation out. I'm going to CHEN email.
You want to email that?
Zach had it already prepared.
Please.
So that we can schedule.
That's right. Just as Ms. Pearson is saying, we would like to make sure that you do get your health screening scheduled. I hope that this was refreshing to you all. And I think Dr. Jackson, this might be something that Dr. Chris Jackson is the president of IMF, and mental health and pastor care for our ministers is something that's very big to him and his administration. So I think this might be some groundbreaking work that might be able to help us down there at IMF just as well too, Tom. Yes, Dana.
Do you have your group for the tour on Thursday?
I'm about to finish wrapping that up. Thank you. Pastor, if you could, would you like to join us on Thursday for a tour down at the Nashville Health Center, 1919? And it'll be starting at 11. We'll be together till about 1:15, 1:30. Dr. Laws?
That's Thursday at 11.
Yes.
11 to 1. Let me check on my calendar.
Okay.
It'll be tight, but I think
Think you can make it work?
make it work. Yeah, I have
Dr.
my
Jackson?
retirement meeting.
Okay, that's right. You have Bible study on Thursdays. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Feel free to grab some more sandwiches. Make sure you have Tom's contact information so that you can be in touch with him. By you being CHEN members and he being one of our partners, it's important that we make sure we tie those loose ends together. Because, I get calls from some of you all as colleagues asking me for referrals of where to go. And I think Tom has given us a laundry list to help us today. And we will make sure that we communicate with you all the rest of the information from today's presentation. Again, thank you, Dr. Tom Starling, for showing up today and presenting on mental health, compassion, fatigue, and mental fortitude for the CHEN pastors for our second learning session. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. It's on Facebook. I messed around and didn't have the recording happening at first, but